Anyway, my name is Andris. We got Craig here. You can hear his voice. You can't see him. He's invisible. But we are the Baking Steel team today, and we are going to have our virtual pizza class. And we've had a bunch of these classes, and we've done everything from breads to English muffins to, what else have we done, Chef? Pita breads, bagels, all kind of dough-centric, because that's like the base of everything. So we figured if you can figure that out, putting toppings on pizza, or making sandwiches out of English muffins, pretty easy. But making the doughs are the trickier part. But today we thought we would take a different turn and talk about making pizza, and which brings us to now, which is what we're going to do. And so this class is going to be more for you guys. We want you to ask as many questions as you can. We'll do our best to answer every single one. If there's some duplicates in there, that's fine too. But I thought what we could do is walk you through the steps of pizza night. Like, let's say pretend it's Friday evening and we have our family or our guests arriving, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that we do to make legendary pizza at home. We're going to assume that everyone has their dough all ready. So we're not going to make the dough today, but we are using our 72-hour dough, and we will link to these recipes if you guys need them, but they all are available. If we got store-bought dough, you made dough, you bought dough from somewhere else, all the technique is going to be the same. Does that sound good to everybody? So let's start. The very first thing we do when we're making pizzas at home is we remove our dough from the fridge. That's like the first thing that I do, because ultimately the dough's been cold fermenting and we want to get it back to room temperature. And we do that by removing it from the refrigerator. I've actually got one out here. Pulled these out this morning about, I don't know, like 7 a.m. So it's been literally, Brian actually balled it up too, so it needed to rest for a couple of hours. That's like a 4-hour proof at room temp, and it looks like it's getting live. You can see the bubbles coming in play, which is awesome. The next thing that I do is I kind of design my pizzas. So kind of like I did for this class today. I said, we're going to make 2 pizzas in class today. We're going to do one with red sauce and one white sauce pizza, or white pizza, I should say. So I kind of designed the pizzas and wrote everything down of what I needed. So I needed we call that the mise en place. Mise en place is like a French term for kind of get your shit together. And so we kind of did that. I've got my sauces here, right? I've got my cheese already grated. I've got some shaved garlic. So basically all my toppings I've got ready. And that takes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes to do that, maybe an hour, depending what you have on your toppings. And then the next thing I'm going to do is fire up my oven about at least 1 hour before I start to make pizzas. And that's if I have a baking steel. We hope we all do. If you don't have a baking steel, hopefully you have at least a pizza stone. And I would follow the same principles for a pizza stone. 1 hour preheat. I'm going to take you guys inside my oven here for a second. Let me see. I do this screen reversal thing here. So you can see I've got my steel, baking steel in the oven. I've got actually 2. One on the top shelf, one on the bottom shelf. Those things have been preheating for 1 hour. And if I don't have if I only have one steel, which is in the case, most people only have one steel, I'm going to use the top rack for a preheat, because that allows the broiler to come into play for making pizzas, if that makes sense. I like to use the broiler for almost all my pizzas, not all of them, but like New York style, I wouldn't use the broiler, but if I'm making pizzas in succession, the broiler comes into play. Sound good? Does anybody have any questions so far? Chef, anything coming on in yet, or are we good?
Right now we're good. We got some we'll get to in a little bit, but where you're at, we're good right now.
Great, awesome. All right, so I want to emphasize, get all your mise en place ready first. That means your dough, your cheeses, your sauces, everything's in front of you, organized, ready to rock and roll. My oven has been preheating for an hour at least, because I need all that temperature inside that steel. And then, and I still give myself a few minutes. Okay, now I'm almost ready to make my pizzas. That's really important. Now let's talk about.
Sorry, real quick, interrupt you because we're having a bunch right now.
Yeah.
The temperature.
Okay.
Why for an hour? And what happens if you do less? And explain that you're not using the broiler to preheat.
Okay, cool. Right. So I don't use the broiler to preheat because that's going to get my oven actually too hot. We found 500 degrees Fahrenheit is the ultimate temperature for steel and making pizza at home. What was the second question, Chef? Oh, why an hour? So we like to give it, if I do anything less, if I do like 30 minutes, which I have done before, I find when I put my dough onto my steel, it literally just kind of like, it just kind of plops in there. Whereas we get it scorching hot at 500 degrees, the dough, once it hits that hot steel, we're gonna get the full benefit of the baking steel. And that is, it transfers energy 20 times faster than a pizza stone would. So when that dough hits that steel, it puffs up that crust. And we call that oven spring. And that's the true benefit of a baking steel, is the heat transfer. So not only is it gonna cook it faster than a pizza stone, it's gonna cook it better and crispier and area on the inside. Does that cover that? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. And that's the main difference, by the way. If I have a stone up here and a pizza stone here and a pizza steel here, they're both going to get to 500 degrees. But as I open and close the doors and I put things on top of it, the stone loses more heat than a steel would throughout the evening. And you're not going to cook a pizza in 2 or 3 minutes on a pizza stone. It just doesn't happen. And that's the science of the baking steel. And we're going to make 2 pizzas here shortly. I'm going to walk you through each step that we do. All right. So let's start by making. I'm going to make a traditional margarita pizza now. And I'm going to walk you through the steps. This dough, which you can kind of see, is room temperature. It's going to stretch really easy because we used our 72-hour dough. Tools that we have to have for making pizza. A pizza peel. This is a must. I like wood versus metal because wood whisks away some of the moisture, and so it's not going to get stuck on my peel as easy. It still can get stuck, but just not as easy. And we'll talk about what happens if that does happen. How do we prevent that from happening? So I got my peel. I have my ingredients. What I'm going to do first is flour up my wood peel. I use the flour that's in the dough, and I use semolina flour. So you can't really see here. These are like little grits. It's like durum wheat. And I kind of spread that around my peel. Think of the flours as your ball bearings. Remember Chevy Chase, right? The movie, all about ball bearings. Well, that's my ball bearings. Once I get that set, I'm going to put that aside and grab my dough. And because we used a 72-hour dough, I'm going to flour up both sides on the countertop. Okay, I feel good it's not going to stick. Because this dough has been fermenting for literally 3 days, these glutens are so chill and relaxed, it's going to stretch super easy. So I lightly press out. I like to keep the bubbles. Anybody else like bubbles? Chef, quick hand count on bubbles, guys. Do you like bubbles? Raise your hand. Throw your hand up. And now watch. Once this thing gets to be about 5 or 6 inches, I'm going to pick it up and let gravity do everything. I'm going to work around the perimeter. You can see how this thing's stretching? See how easy that stretches? I'm not doing, again, no skill here. I'm just kind of working. I don't poke a hole through it. I'm already at about 9 inches, which is awesome. Pick it up and let gravity do its thing. Super easy. I like to make these about, 11 or 12 inches. These are personal pizzas. They're awesome. I got beautiful bubbles on this. I'm going to show you guys the bubbles, what I'm looking at. You can see. You guys see that? Isn't that gorgeous? It's supple. It's chill. Really relaxed. Okay? When I get to be about 9 or 10 inches, oh, and I want to give you one little secret too. We get this question a lot about the secret to round pizza, and there is a secret. You start with a round dough. In other words, let me get you, show you why we like these delis so much. We love these delis, and these are 2-cup delis. This is where we proof and ferment our doughs in the fridge in these. These are round. You see the little oil here? We start with a round dough. That's how you start with a round. That's how you make a round pizza. Super easy. Like a secret of life. All right, so when my dough is finely stretched, I'm gonna place it on my peel, okay? And remember those ball bearings you put on there? I'm gonna make sure this thing is loose like a hockey puck, where it slides like a hockey puck. I give it a little shake back and forth. Nothing is getting stuck. So what I'll do, if it does get stuck, I'll pick up that edge and I'll lightly flour underneath it again. And then I can give it a shake again. And now I'm confident I can get this thing off the peel into the oven. And I can start my topping process. What we're gonna do here, I'm gonna make a red sauce pizza first. And I'll talk about the sauce in a few minutes. But I've got my sauce pre-made, and this is essentially crushed tomatoes, a little bit of salt. I place it on the center of my pizza. And we're gonna say this throughout the pizza making process, that less is more. But I just kind of spread it out. I bring the sauce close to the edge, but not over the edge, just like life. Does that make sense?
Top down on that.
What's that?
Do a little top down camera.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So I didn't go heavy here. Let's take a peek. Uh-oh. Let's take a peek. Look at that. You can see the bubbles, right? But not a lot of sauce. And now before I do anything else, I'm gonna pick it up. This is really important. This is probably one of the most important things you'll learn today. Pick this thing up and make sure that's sliding like a hockey puck. Nothing is getting stuck. And now I'm ready to put my cheese on, which is important. Uh-oh, you guys see me?
Nope.
All right, let's see it. What I do. Oh, there it is. All right, there we go. All right. Now I'm ready to put my cheese on this thing. So I'm comfortable. My dough's gonna slide, and I'll continue doing this slide motion throughout the pizza making process. The cheese, I'm using fresh mozzarella cheese. This is fresh mozzarella from Maplebrook Farms in Vermont. It's whole milk. It's wrapped in plastic wrap. The other options you can buy at the grocery store is whole milk mozzarella that sits in a brine, like the liquid. We avoid that at all costs for pizza making if we can, because I like to have it somewhat dry. If I have to buy the brine version, just take it and wrap it in paper towels and squeeze it dry for a few minutes before we make our pizza. Because the idea is we want to keep the moisture away, otherwise we'll have a soggy crust. Okay, so I'm gonna take my cheese. I'm gonna use my knife just to kind of get this plastic off of here. And now what I'm gonna do, actually I'm gonna put my broiler on at the same time. Switch my oven to broil on high, if you have options, on high. I just rip this cheese up and I place it on my pizza. I might kind of coat it with a little bit of sauce too, just to kind of help it not brown too much. Cheese. And again, the mantra that we use over and over again is less is more. This is your canvas. This is how I would paint it if I was a painter. I'm a pizza painter, I guess, right? And I like odd number pieces for some reason. I always use odd number of ingredients on my pizza toppings. So that's my cheese. Now, let's talk about basil for a second. I got basil here. Do I put it on before the bake or after the bake? Well, the answer is it doesn't matter. Whatever you choose. If you like it after, do it after. If you like it before, do it before. Same thing with olive oil. I like to put the oil on at the end of the bake. There's no right or wrong answer. Explore, be adventurous, do what you feel like doing. That broiler is on, so I'm gonna go in.
Okay.
Is that okay? So before I go in, I'm gonna go forward and backwards. Make sure this thing's still loose, like a hockey puck.
Slap it.
What's that?
Slap it on the table.
Slap it on this. Oh yes. If it gets stuck, one other great option is this. Here, like we just take it, we drop it flat, right? And that's gonna loosen it up. Okay. It's a great little trick. So open the oven up, back of the peel, the back of the steel. Close her up. Do I have a timer somewhere? Yes. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put my timer on for 2 minutes. And what that does is it just, if I get into a conversation, I'm not going to forget about my broiler being on and burning my pizza. Because we found in this oven, by the way, shout out to Monogram, these ovens are beautiful. 2 minutes is a pretty good amount of time to get a little bit of char on top and then turn the broiler off. And we'll finish it for 2 more minutes. I'm gonna make 2 pizzas today. So what I thought I would do is I'm gonna use a 2 steel technique, which means I can make them a little bit faster using 2 steels. And I got another dough here, boom. So those goes in the flour. But I will pause here for a second, chefs, and if we have any questions, love to answer some. What we got?
What setting is on your preheat for the oven?
The setting for preheat.
Convection.
Oh, so yes, I use 500 convection. If I have convection available, I'll use convection. I like I like to have that fan blowing around. It just seems to even out the cooking a little bit better.
What happens if you have a broiler in the drawer?
Ooh, a broiler in the drawer. So if I have that oven, that style, I will not use the broiler. Obviously, I'll keep my steel on the top rack and I'll bake my pizza for 5 or 6 minutes. At the very end, I might use that broiler just to give myself a little bit of color on the top, but I won't move the steel. That's really important. Do not move the steel. But let's take a peek inside the oven here. It's been about almost 2 minutes. Okay. You guys, you don't want to see me. You want to see the pizza. All right, let's open her up. Look at this. So I'm opening this thing up. You guys can see the color on the top, which is cool. It's actually probably a little bit heavier than I wanted it to be. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take that. I'm going to try to do this with one hand. And I'm going to take it out of here. I'm going to move it to my bottom steel. Okay, just like this. I'm going to actually leave the broiler on. And the other thing I'm going to do, open my oven up. See this semolina flour? I'm going to dust that off for my next pizza. I want to have a clean steel at all times. It's really important. Okay? I'm going to close the oven. I'm going to put my timer on 2 more minutes so that bottom pizza can catch up to the top pizza. Does that make sense? All right, how are we doing? That pizza looked pretty cool, right? So I moved that to the bottom steel. I left the broiler on. What that's going to do is it's going to protect the top from getting darker. It's going to allow the bottom to catch up to the top. And we do that in about 4 minutes. Okay, so 2 minutes up top, 2 minutes on the bottom. If I don't have a second steel, I just need to turn off the broiler and just cook it on the top steel. That's the only difference I'll do here. In the meantime, I'm gonna get a second pizza ready here because I've got my other dough, I've got the top steel. I like to give it 2 minutes to rebound. In other words, after I took something off of there, I want to get back to 500 degrees, and we find about 2 minutes to be ideal. Excuse me. I'm gonna make another pizza for you guys here, okay? And what I do is I press out. You with us, Chef? Let me just try to get something here. There we go. You with me, Chef? Did I lose you? Huh?
Yeah, your connection cut off.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get back to the second pizza here. Same thing. Okay. Flour both sides. And now watch the gravity do its thing.
Are you able to raise the camera?
Yep.
And look down. You get a lot of people asking that.
Well, they want to see the dough?
Well, yeah, just more like angle down towards it. Like raise the camera and angle it down.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me see if I can get it closer maybe. How's that?
Still pretty level with the dough.
I want to go higher. Like, let me see if I can go like this. You want to see me working like that, basically?
Yeah, I just really can see the dough.
Can you see the dough here, guys? It's going to be hard for me to pick up. I'm going to pause for a second anyway, here. I want to, let's go grab this pizza. Let's take a look inside the oven. You can see this thing. It is like really pretty. Let's take a look at the bottom. You can see the bottom crust is almost perfect. So what I'll do, I'll grab the peel, slide it off. Look at that thing. It's gorgeous, right? I want to go to the bottom of this crust, right? Look at this. Perfectly cooked. The cheese, I probably went, to be honest, a little heavy on the cheese. You guys saw what I did there. I've made a margarita in a while. And now, if I like, I can grab some fresh basil, put it on top, right? We like to go odd number ingredients. I'm gonna go with 5 pieces of basil, right? Maybe a little bit of olive oil, swirl it around, and that's it. That thing's gorgeous. Look at that. Look at this pizza. Oh man. Anybody want a slice? Raise your hand. Isn't that pretty? I'm gonna put this off to the side for now. Excuse me. And let's make another pizza. Another pizza. All right, how was that? Cool? But you're saying we're having a hard time. I'm gonna try to put this on peel. I'm gonna make the second pizza now. Again, I'm gonna flour up my peel, semolina flour and flour. We always say less is more. Those are your ball bearings. The better you get at this, like the more practice you get, the less you're gonna use. You can see the pros hardly use any at all. But in the beginning, you know, more is actually less, because the goal, the number one goal is to remove this into the hot oven. And so you need to have a pretty good amount of ball bearings to do that. Now for the crust itself, you can see this thing. Look at the gravity, this is working, these glutens.
Turn your hands around a little bit so they can see where your
Like
hands are.
this way, like that maybe?
Perfect. Yep.
I'm kind of just going around, okay? And this gravity's doing everything. And it's already stretched. I got about a 10-inch pizza there, 11-inch pizza, which is beautiful, about the size I like. If I stretch that out bigger, it's gonna be thinner. If I stretch it out smaller, it's gonna be puffier. I like it to be somewhat in the middle. And if you look at this crust right here, it's got a pretty good puff to it, right? Versus a thin crust. In any case, our dough is like, it's pristine right now. So I'm gonna make a white pizza. Let's talk about white pizza, but just a minute first. I think, gosh, in the day, like white pizza used to mean like bechamel sauce. What else? What other,
You know, like a mornay or just like a garlic cream sauce.
yeah, like a cream sauce, garlic cream, bechamel, like just cream-based, really fatty sauces. I think we've kind of flipped that a little bit. And if we're going, when someone says white pizza to me now, it just means your base is going to be cheese and white cheese, right? So that's what that's my spin on it. I don't like to do those heavy creams. So white cheese is your white pizza. And what we used to do, here's a nice little spin you can take on a white pizza for your sauce. You can take a little bit of like, if I can get another spoon. You can take, I took some fresh garlic, okay? I got to spoon some right in the center here of my pizza. I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil, this right there, and I'm going to kind of spread this around. I might even take a little bit of sea salt and place it on here. We used to do this back in my fig days. Like so that's kind of like my white sauce, if you will. So I'm going to spoon it around the garlic and the a little bit more garlic, a little bit more oil, right? And just kind of spread this around. That's gonna be like my base sauce. Now I'll show you guys the top down of this in a second. To make this a little bit more unique, then you can put some black pepper, some crushed black pepper if you'd like. That can be your base sauce. So let's take a peek what this looks like. You can see my my dough. I got the sauce on there. I got some garlic on there. I got some sea salt. I got my bubbles going. It's pretty beautiful. So that's my base. Okay, and now for the cheese. Let's talk about the cheese for a second. One rule of thumb, always shred your own cheese. So if you get, you know, you've seen these blocks at the deli. This is a whole milk mozzarella. The brand is a 1950 127 brand. I think you can get this at Restaurant Depot, maybe even Costco. It's a low moisture mozzarella cheese. It's whole milk. Whole milk just means it's gonna, I think, cook a little bit more, less browning on the bake than a skim milk. But we always want to shred this ourselves because each individual, when you buy the pre-shredded type of cheese, these individual strands are typically coated with like a starch to help them from not sticking together. And that starch tends to brown and cook too fast on a pizza in the oven, and it gets really, really brown and kind of ugly and burnt. We buy pizzas like that sometimes. So at home, we grind it and we shred it ourselves, and that's my spin. I'm using a combination of low moisture mozzarella and fontina cheese. And the reason is because I just happen to like this combination. And these are combined. I shredded them both this morning. I'm going to place them on my pizza here. Okay. And this is going to be my white pizza. No sauce or a white sauce. But my white sauce is just olive oil and a little bit of garlic and a little bit of sea salt and a little bit of pepper if you have it, which I don't have. And that's it. So, you know, in fact, what we might do for this one, let's cook the basil on the pizza underneath the cheese. So I'm going to kind of lift this up, kind of bury it underneath. Get a little basil going here too. I use odd amounts, so odd amounts of ingredients.
Did you say it was fontina was the second one, or
Yeah, it's a fontina.
Fontina second one.
Yep. Less is still more when I'm topping my pizza. And you guys can see this, right? My white pizza. Now, before I do anything, before I go into the oven again, I'm going to give this thing a little shake. If you can see, I just peeked. I saw the broiler is still on, so I want to go in there when that broiler is fired up. And so the back of this peel goes to the back of the steel, and I just lightly shake it off, like I would just like this. Once again, oh, these racks slide out. Clean my steel off. We did that. Back of the peel to the back of the steel, and just shake it off. Close her up. That oven is super hot, so I want to put my my timer on again. I'm gonna do it for 1 minute and 45 seconds, just so I can peek again and take a look of what's going on inside to make this beautiful white pizza. And now we can take some questions from you guys. Let us have them. What do you got? Coffee, anybody?
Who cleans up after all the mess? Who cleans up after all the mess?
Yours truly. Yours truly. I get to eat the pizza as my reward. I might tell my kids I'm gonna have 2 pizzas today. All right? Yeah. What else you guys have?
About outdoor cooking with the steel. Yeah,
you know what? We're gonna cover that in a class because that is awesome technique. It's a little bit more involved for this type of class because we really want to do like an outdoor pizza class. In fact, that might be in the next few weeks before Memorial Day. We'll jump in there and do that.
Yep.
We hope. If not, we got some videos we can share in the meantime. Just follow us on Instagram or email us, comment below, all of that, all the above. I just want to peek, make sure we're good. Okay, yeah, we're good. Peekaboo. Anybody else?
Do you recommend letting your steel develop a patina on it?
Yes, 100%. So after I use my steel, for example, tomorrow, I'm going to take these steels out and clean them. And almost every time what I'll do afterwards, I'm going to lightly coat it with, I like to use flax oil or avocado oil. I'm going to lightly coat it on both sides and then just put it back in the oven. The next time I bake, it's going to kind of season itself. And that way it's always going to have a really nice patina on it and it's going to last forever. So really keep it oiled and cleaned all the time. Let's take a peek inside the oven. So you can see I've got some nice color on top again, right? I don't want to go too much more darker than that, but you can see the bottom's getting there, right? It's getting closer. I'm going to remove this and just put it to the bottom steel again. Okay. I want to clean that steel off. It's hard filming and always clean your steels. And then, oof, almost lost it. Isn't that pretty? Close my oven up. I'm going to switch this off a broiler now and put our timer on for 2 more minutes. 1:45, that'll work. Another 4-minute pizza in a home environment. And that is truly like the remarkable thing about a baking steel is that it can just make pizza after pizza after pizza in 2 to 4 minutes. I'm sorry, probably about 4 minutes. You can do them faster too. 2 minutes with the broiler on, 2 minutes with the broiler off, and boom, we're done. Every time. It's great. Super crispy, super tasty too. What other questions, Chef? Okay, grill class is great. We'll do that. We'll cover that next. Maybe make some smash burgers too.
Can you just do a quick explanation? Which brought up Tony Zicciarelli's, how he talks about the 2-steel method. Explain the method behind that versus just launching 2 pieces.
Yeah, so ideally, we call it, someone actually brought this point up the other day, they call it steel estate. So the more steel space I can take up in my oven, the more floor space is basically more real estate, right? Inside. So I got more, and the pizziolos, like a guy like Tony, to say, geez, the more surface area that's freshly hot is going to be better for the pizza to cook. So in other words, I can find all these hot spots inside a home oven using 2 steels. If I only have 1 steel, I'm more limited to those that steel estate. So now I've got a bottom steel where I can actually, it's a brand new hot spot because, as you open and close the oven, put things on top of the steel, it does reduce the heat. So we're always looking for a nice hot spot. And if you see those guys who work in those wood-fired ovens, they're always in there kind of shifting things around because they know they're pure artists. They know where the hot spots are, where to finish the pizza, how to, head up to the dome to get that color on top, all of those things. And the same thing applies to a home environment. Let's take a peek. Look at this thing. Unbelievable. So I'm going to show you guys first. I'll show you the bottom crust. I mean, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And now we'll go from the top down. There's the top down. Here we go. Look at that. Boom. Where's the pizza paparazzi when you need them, right? Inside, look underneath. Crust is beautiful. White pizza. It's got a little, like, you can see the oil coming through the cheese a little bit, which I kind of love personally. Amazing. So that's like literally 2 pizzas we made in like 4 minutes. We'll take some pictures in a few minutes for you guys to see these things, but they're really stunning and beautiful. Super pumped about it. Yeah. What do you got for questions? Any more questions, Chef?
Pyrex glass pan on a steel.
Yeah, great question. I would just make sure you stay true to the brand Pyrex, which is a great brand. I put our pie plates directly on top of our steel all the time for making pies. It's going to help that soggy crust. Your soggy pie crust will no longer be soggy because you're baking it on the steel, indirectly, but directly. Anybody else, Chef? Anything else?
Typical home use for the steel, how many times should you be seasoning it?
In the beginning, like we season it for you. So, but in the beginning, like the first few times, and I say seasoning, but what I talked about before, after you clean it, just lightly, wipe some oil on it. And here's what I do. I squirt the oil on, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll wipe it in, and then I'll take a clean paper towel and I'll try to wipe it off. And what that does is it allows such a tiny micro layer of oil. That's all that you need. If your steel is sticky in areas sometimes, it means you have too much oil. It didn't cure properly. So really, really, really thin layer of oil is all that you need. Anybody else? Pizza time. I'm going to eat all of this pizza.
Sour starter in place of yeast.
Great question. So our typical recipe is 500 grams of flour. If I'm going to use my starter, I'm going to use 20% of my starter in that recipe. So I'll remove 20% of the flour and water, and I'll take 10% of the flour out, 10% of the water out, and I'll replace it with 100% of my starter. And so that seems to be a perfect recipe to make 3 or 4 pies at a time. We haven't really scaled that up too much, but it's the same. For home use, it's perfect. Hi. Anybody else?
How does the dough change if you leave it for 4 to 7 days after you've already done your 72-hour dough?
So what happens is the glutens in the dough really begin to break down. We find like after days 3 or 4. So you can it's still going to have a lot of like robust flavor, but the glutens become very difficult to stretch. In other words, you'll get a lot of holes in your dough as you're stretching it. So a couple things you can do: make bread, make focaccia, combine them all together, make focaccia. Bread sticks are great. Or take a little bit of that old dough and put it in with a new batch. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, almost like a little sourdough built into it. That's my recommendation.
Best way to store the steel, if not the oven?
Our storage cases are awesome. I mean, that's the kind of storage cases. Let me see if we can get one here. These things are great. The baking steel storage sleeve. I keep mine because I travel with mine. Well, I'm not traveling right now, but if I do, I'm always traveling with my steels in my case. It's nifty, but it's a nice way to kind of keep it, separated from all your other pots and pans, because it will damage them. It's a real beast. Yeah.
Difference between all-purpose bread and double-zero flour.
Yeah. Great question. And I know we've done the homework in a home environment at 500 degrees using a baking steel. We love bread flour. However, we understand in this environment, it's really difficult to get. All-purpose is fine. But the difference between bread and all-purpose is the protein content. There's a lot more protein or glutens in the bread flour. It's stronger. It can hold its shape better. So think of all-purpose for cookies and pies, and bread for pizza and breads, right? It's stronger, a little less chewy. the all-purpose. So if you have to do all-purpose for your pizza dough, maybe don't extend it to 72 hours. Try a 24-hour version of it. That might work a little bit better to keep those pizzas in. That explain that pretty well? Yes. Thanks, Jeff. Is Elvis in the house?
Elvis just left.
Oh, Elvis.
Yes, our pizza dough recipe online, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll link to it too. 72-hour dough at baking steel. You can Google that, or we'll put a link on the Facebook page. But yeah, or just, direct message us, comment. We'll tag it. Highly recommend it. And I'd say just make a batch and just leave it in the fridge and just pull out as you need them. Great way to do it.
Are our steels and flour available now?
Yes. So we don't have flour. We don't sell flour. If you're local, we do local pickups for dough, but our steels are being made every single day. But there's a little bit more of a process as we make and afterwards to get them out. So if you order today, it'll ship in about 2 or 3 weeks. And we're pretty clear about that when you do order. Right now, we're about 2 weeks out, I'd say. 3 weeks tops. Right, Chef?
Yep.
2 or 3 weeks. Yep. Perfect. Anybody else? Are you guys all on Instagram? If you're on Instagram, just real quickly too, we're doing this thing for the month of May called Baking Steel Kids as your hashtag. Make a pizza, doesn't need to be made on a baking steel, but just hashtag it Baking Steel Kids. There's gonna be an ultimate prize at the end. Anybody else?
Pizza cutter recommendation?
We're gonna have one available soon, all I can say. There's rockers, there's slicers. I mean, it's a really personal, there's scissors, people use scissors. It really is a personal preference. I don't love the roller things because I feel like my fingers are gonna get sliced off. But that's me, I only lost one.
What's the hashtag again?
Hashtag is Baking Steel Kids. You guys want to see these pizzas one more time? Let me show you these beauties. Still to this day, just love making pizzas. Anybody else have any questions? Find us at bakingsteel.com, info@bakingsteel. I'm Andris at Baking Steel, Craig at Baking Steel. Ask us anything. We're always here for you. We could not do this without you guys, so thank you. Be safe, be healthy. I hope they lift these restrictions soon so we can all, start getting together a little bit more. And you guys be well. All right.